Hi, Jimmy Smith here, and welcome back to the Wine with Jimmy channel. And welcome to your part three, looking at the wines of the Val de Saunas, the Saunas Valley in Rias Baixas, Galicia. Now, this video is looking at part three. There are two parts before this. The first part is an introduction, so if you haven't watched this, please go back and watch it. And video two is looking at some of the wines I tried out there, as is video three from the Saunas Valley. So this is a continuation of video two. Any comments or questions, please do get in touch by commenting on this video below. But otherwise, I'm going to rock and roll talking about some of the wines I got to taste from the region. Okay, first up then, Just Be Galicia is your first one, and this is the Miguel Varela. And this was a fascinating wine, really interesting, 100% Albarino, 13% alcohol. And this one was barrel fermented with wild yeast, so that would promote more complexity and oxidation. 18 months then aged in French used oak, and then 12 months in steel on top of that to really sort of promote more reduction. And for me, this wine was pretty much Jura meeting Rias Baixas. So if you like your Jura wines from eastern France, your Savagnin, for example, this is exactly like it. Reductive, flinty, minerally, natural, tangy, salty, dried citric peel to it, lots of sex appeal to it, but you've got to like this kind of style. So Jura meets Rias Baixas. Next up, this one was okay. This is the Coanga Ledes 2019. Lower alcohol again, so a little bit on the underripe style, and 100% Albarino. A maceration for 8 hours, wild ferment, and 12 months on the fine lees with batonnage. Now, with those considerations in play, I expected this wine to have much more richness to it. But in fact, this wine was more focused, delicate, salty, fennel, and kind of sort of sagey in its approach. Quite leafy and green on the palate, quite precise, quite measured, if a little delicate. But an interesting wine on that sort of lighter, delicate style. Next up is the Mayor de Mendoza. This was fascinating because it reminded me of the Finca Japa label from Rioja, which is quite an interesting, brilliant produced wine from Bilar, Bodegas Bilar. Very, very good indeed. So this is the Mayor de Mendoza Finca Las Tablas 2018. I really thought this was quite interesting. It was focused, had a lot of life in it, really quite fragrant, lovely freshness, really seemed very young despite 6 years of age, and a real oyster shell minerality to it. This is cold macerated, cold wild yeast ferment, aged in French oak for 6 months, and then steel for 12 months with batonnage in both of those. Really lovely life wine, this one. I really was impressed by the Mayor de Mendoza with a bit of age behind it. Next up then is the Sucesores de Benito Santos Juan, or Juan. This is the Benito Santos Juan as well. 100% Albarino, 13%, and single vineyard. Now, I thought that this actually was very much reminiscent of a still champagne with that kind of lazy brioche note, green apple, and with an almondy touch to it as well. So champagne without bubbles in the Benito Santos. So very interesting. The next one, I'm not too sure about this one. So 100% Albarino, 13% alcohol, destemmed, wild ferment, and aged for 12 months in French oak with batonnage. This for me was really golden. It's a 22 vintage, creamy, and almost like sort of buttered popcorn sort of characteristic, but of butterscotch. For me, a little bit too much on the wooded side of life. Next up, I really like this wine. This is the Santiago Roma Pedranay 2022. Albarino again in this one, 13% alcohol. Old vines, cold soaked for more texture, fermented in ovoid granite eggs, which creates a natural movement of the lees. And that's where it's actually aged on those fine lees. Lovely fat bottle with a wax top, really good looking bottle. And I found this serious, poised with a freshness, white blossom, reductive with a flinty, stony character, a real tension and nervousness on the palate with good texture behind it. I thought this was excellent, seriously well put together, very focused style. So one of my favorites from the Val de Sanez for my own tastes. The next one, this was okay. A lower alcohol style at 12% from 15-year-old vines, fermented at cold temperatures and aged on fine lees in 500-litre used French oak, and then blended with some unoaked wine to create the freshness. It's a fruity, typically floral style with a nutty green almond note and a dried herbal kick. It's an okay wine. The next one, and this will be the final two for this section, this is the Castromatan en Rama, which means not filtered. 100% Albarino again, and from Salnes, as we know, 13% alcohol. Whole bunch pressed for freshness, long cool fermentation, and aged on the fine lees and not filtered. Fined, but not filtered. This is en Rama. I found this electric, bright, salty, a little bit of pétillance initially on the palate, and then that kind of lovely herbal, slightly even minty fennel character. I liked this. I thought it was really decent style wine. The final wine is the Bodegas La Caña Navia 2022. 13.5% on the riper side of the scale. Cold soaked for half a day. Whole cluster pressed. Fermented in 500, 600 litre puncheons, and then 12 months in oak. It's laden in oak, this style. Not so much of a diacetyl style, not popcorny, but creamy wood. And there is some salty character in there as well. So on the palate, rounded, creamy, leesy with peach and vanilla and toast. I think it needs more time for the oak to integrate with the fruity characters. Thank you so much for joining me on that video 3. Join me for another sub-region next on part 4 when we look at the wines of O Rosal down on the Portuguese border and on the coast of Galicia. Any comments or questions, please do get in touch. I've been Jimmy Smith. Ciao for now. Goodbye.